Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Check out my comics, Big Baby and STARCRASHER at KINGCOMICS.CA. Today, guys, it is Wildcard Day where we look at things that are a little bit different from our regularly scheduled comics and cast of artists. So a few months ago, I reviewed RORSCHACH #1, the Before Watchmen concept, right? Not quite sure how I got that first issue. I feel like one of my friends, possibly Nick, gave it to me. I'm not 100% sure on that. But it was in my comics collection, that pile of just random stuff that you tend to have when you collect comics. And never would have bought it at that point because back in the day when this came out, I was philosophically more on the side of Alan Moore. Guys, if you don't know the story here behind Watchmen real quick, you know, it was very popular in the 80s when Alan Moore first published it with Dave Gibbons, the artist. Kind of recreations of Charlton characters that DC had just inherited the rights to. And they didn't want to kind of mess with those characters. So basically Alan Moore created analogs to all those characters, you know, new original characters who were kind of based off of, obviously, those old Golden Age characters from, Silver Age characters from Charlton. And basically the deal he had with DC was once Watchmen was out of publication, he would then retain the rights of the characters in the book would come back to him. But it was a huge success and kind of a victim of his own success. DC just kept publishing it and printing up more and more and never stopped printing it. You know, within, I guess, the time delays that are, you know, supposed to kind of exist, I guess, in these kind of contracts. You know, I don't think they were just continually printing Watchmen. That wouldn't make sense. But every few months they would renew and print up some more, right? So Alan Moore, kind of a bone of contention with DC, one of the main reasons he stopped working for them. And so again, philosophically, I was kind of opposed to this. It was kind of sacrilege for you know, new creators to say, hey, we're going to come into the Watchmen world and create more new stories within that universe. So I still want to think of Watchmen as just what Alan Moore did, that one thing, and that's great. But I have to say, out of all of these that have come out, you know, there's the Owl, Night Owl, there's Rorschach, there's the Comedian. There's a bunch of them. We'll see the ad. I'll talk about it when we get there more in detail. But Rorschach is maybe the most interesting one as far as the writer and the artist. And, you know, because I'd reviewed issue #1, I found these recently, issue 2, 3, and 4, the whole miniseries, in a dollar bin. So I didn't feel too bad about it, right? So that kind of goes to show that maybe DC thought it would be a huge success and maybe it wasn't quite as big a success as they thought, because I'm finding a lot of these in the dollar bin. I don't know about the other ones, but at least Rorschach, right? At this point, you know, if I do find them for cheap in dollar bins, I will buy them and I will review them. But I have to say that, you know, Brian Azzarello definitely has been working within the confines of what's been established of Rorschach. I don't feel like he's veering off too much. I feel like it's pretty true to character overall. And of course, he's paired with such a great artist that these books, I have to say, unfortunately, in spite of me, are kind of a joy to go through and fun overall. I like a lot of the cool design elements. I'm just going to point out here, Rorschach, once again, there is an actual Rorschach test on the table. It's his reflection on kind of a marble tabletop at a diner with some food. It's basically the first panel of the comic, right? The cover. Sometimes artists do that kind of thing, right? And it's playing on, you know, the happy face motif from Watchmen with the blood on it, or is it ketchup? We don't know for sure. The eggs here, same kind of thing, right? Is it blood or is it ketchup? We don't know. But since you can kind of see that Rorschach's face is pretty beaten up, we can assume this is some of the blood kind of pouring from his face onto the surface here. It's kind of ambiguous. Could be ketchup, could be blood, could be both, you know, and that's kind of fun. Just a lot of different things going on in this cover. Paying homage to Watchmen, but also making it their own. And if you, again, look at the pattern, it's a Rorschach test, and it basically looks like a skull, right? So all these cool, kind of interesting visual design elements that Lee BERMEEJO's throwing in there, I think are really cool. That's it for the cover. Let's have a look inside. So after having been beaten up by a new gang of street toughs, last issue, Rorschach has lost his face and is at the diner. And we're reintroduced to Nancy, who works at the diner and, you know, has a little bit of a soft spot for Rorschach and is trying to take care of him here. And again, this panel here, if you look at it, basically a recreation or almost straight up from the cover, just with different bit of coloring and stuff. So this is a fun one because Rorschach, again, right away going out and seeking revenge on the guys who kicked the shit out of him last issue and left him for dead, right? They thought he was gonna die anyways, right? He says it here, underestimated gang that tried to murder me. So now he's again going to get his revenge on them. So here's kind of a foreboding shot I like in the storytelling where he's, you know, kind of framed by the door of this delivery truck or van, indicating he's going to probably do something with that here. So yeah, he basically drives it right into one of the guys here, crushes him. And this is one of the other thugs, I think, that were in on it. Here's where you can see Lee BERMEEJO is doing some photo referencing for sure for this truck here, which isn't bad. With his art style, I find he integrates it really well into his pages, and it doesn't kind of stand out too much. You know what I mean? Sometimes when photo reference is next to more cartoony or comic book art, it kind of stands out and doesn't mesh well together, right? And as he looks in the truck, there's no driver, but he finds a little paper with the Rorschach test on it, so they know who that is, right? But I feel like these touches here are pretty true to the character, right? That I know of Rorschach from Watchmen. That's why I kind of appreciate this one. I don't know how well, again, the other series do it. Eventually I'll find out, hopefully, and do some reviews of those. But I feel like, you know, even though I didn't want, you know, them to extrapolate and add on to Alan Moore's thing, I think here in Rorschach, they're doing it in a really cool way. So, you know, he's looking around, you know, he's kind of starting to think, man, Rorschach can be any of these guys, right? Because he doesn't know what his face looks like. Obviously, he's always got the mask on, at least when he confronted these guys. And then a Molotov cocktail just shows up and boom, explodes in this guy's face. Pretty sadistic, but as we know from Watchmen, once again, Rorschach is basically psychotic, right? So, you know, I don't know if you could, you know, when I read it when I was 13, I think the first time I read Watchmen, I was like, man, he's cool. He's just like the most extreme version of Batman, whatever. And, you know, as you get older, you're like, yeah, just a mentally disturbed psycho going out killing people. The right people, I guess you could argue, right? In the sense of like a Dexter, right? That TV show, the serial killer who kills other serial killers, but still morally, obviously, only possible in a comic book, or on a TV show like Dexter, right? In real life, a guy like this, I mean, I don't know, Bernie Getz and all that stuff. I'm not going to, you know, spend too much time on that today. Look it up. Is that Ethan Van Sciver on that Batman drawing? I feel like it is. Written and illustrated by Damon Lindelof, Jeff Lemire, J.G. Jones, Tom Taylor. Okay, I'm not quite sure. Another thing I don't like about these Before Watchmen comics is the fact that they're ads, right? One of the things that's cool about Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, I guess what they used to call the prestige format to a certain extent, or one of the characteristics of the prestige format, is there are no ads all throughout the story, right? So ads that interrupt the story and Watchmen don't work together really well for me. So yeah, that's an aspect I don't like here. But I mean, listen, what I got, Lee BERMEEJO's characters, I don't feel like he's drawing from photo reference everywhere, but he probably uses it a little bit, like for this tiger. I think that makes a little bit more sense. The open mouth. I mean, how are you going to draw that if you've never drawn that before, or very rarely, right? But a lot of it, I think, is probably extrapolated from a few pictures, right, for the characters and stuff. But the coloring is pretty interesting too in this very purple, right, just like the original Watchmen, but more of a 2000s, 2010 vibe, you know, with the lighting effects and stuff. And I think it works pretty well here. It's not too overbearing. I kind of like the disco-y kind of reflective backgrounds all the way throughout the sequence. Pretty cool. And that's your big bad, right? The boss of the gang that we're talking about here. I like this. He says, Rorschach must be some VC in that run team motherfucker. So veteran, right, from Vietnam, I believe. I think that's what a VC refers to. So yeah, Rorschach's still in pretty bad shape though, eh? He's got the Marv band-aids on the face and stuff. Of course, Nancy's still trying to help him out here. And a pretty gruesome sequence where he just kind of barfs out some blood all over the table here. This is really in bad shape. But again, Lee BERMEEJO, like how great is he at establishing, you know, this doesn't feel very much like a superhero book right here anyways, right? It's just, you know, kind of slice of life, you know, dirty diner, the Gunga diner, right? Where they're eating the Gunga? I think it's Gunga. It's all very authentic. The seats, the floor, you know, kind of dingy, but then the light coming in. Not quite sure what's going on. It seems like an image has been photoshopped in there. I'd have to look up closer. I feel like there's some baboons in there or something. I'm not sure. Kind of annoying again, just a big ad. And it almost looks like, you know, the intro page to a Batman comic in a weird way with the credits and stuff. So it's like, oh, is that it? And some new story starting? No, we're back to Rorschach. So yeah, Very annoying to have the ads in a Watchmen book. I like the point of view here. This guy on the bed, you know, the orderlies, the orderlies wheeling them through there, kind of reminiscent of RoboCop a little bit. If you've seen that movie, you know what I'm talking about. Great down shot here. Probably a little bit of photo reference there because so many characters in different positions and stuff and different types of body language. It would be helpful. And while there's that distraction, Rorschach, of course, takes advantage of the situation to steal some medicine, drugs, right? And again, another photo reference shot here for sure, but that works really well. It's well integrated into BERMEEJO's kind of natural style. There's something, yeah, he's very adept at the dirty and grimy kind of vibe, right? There's a Joker book that he did with Azzarello as well that kind of has that same aesthetic, I find. Like, he just has a way of turning those photo reference things into, like, great color choices, great textures. So here's another member of the gang, and Rorschach has found him too. He's apparently a pimp here. Something bad was about to happen to this lady, so Rorschach comes in just in the nick of time. Again, in line with what we know of Rorschach from the actual Watchmen miniseries, everyone's intimidated by him, right? So this guy, you know, as soon as he sees him, knows who he is, you know, kind of just slips down into his chair. And yeah, once again, very annoying kind of ad right in the middle. And this is maybe to me what's this double page splash here is what's wrong with Before Watchmen all around. Before Watchmen has been an unqualified success. The first issues are out, right? So, you know, a lot of hyperbole from comic publishers, right? So not quite sure how that works out all the way throughout each of the miniseries. So there's 7 series, right? So as I said, Rorschach, it just makes sense that, you know, Rorschach, as psychotic as he is, probably the most known or recognized or favorite character from Watchmen, whether you agree with what he does or not, right? Or how he does it, I guess, would be the most interesting of the titles. Second in line for that, for me at least, would be The Comedian, because it's got the same writer, and J.G. Jones, who's a great artist. So that'd be the second one I'd be interested in. Now, Ozymandias by Len Wein. He was the editor, I think, on those first 11 issues of Watchmen. He had an argument with Alan Moore about the last issue and was not editor on that. That's from Len Wein himself. I read that in an interview. But J. Lee artwork definitely would be very interesting. So, you know, maybe. But already here, this Jim Lee presentation of it all, I think Jim Lee is probably the publisher by that point, but it just doesn't work for me for many reasons. One, Silk Spectre here. They redesigned her costume. She never had this costume in Watchmen at all. Whether it's supposed to be like a younger version or a slightly older version, I'm not quite sure. I'd have to read it right. Darwin Cook as a writer is interesting, so maybe, but Amanda Conner has kind of a cartoony style, so it just, not that I don't like Amanda Conner's art, I do. I really like that book with that superhero prostitute, hilarious, written by Garth Ennis. What's her name? I forget. You probably know what I'm talking about. Let me know in the comments. The Job, The Workers, anyways. But yeah, just not suited, I feel, to like the Watchmen universe, right? It's kind of cartoony and bubbly and stuff, so kind of an odd choice. Minutemen by Darwin Cook, that makes sense. He's writing and drawing, you know, could be interesting. He's got kind of a retro style, and the Minutemen were kind of the precursors of the Watchmen during wartime, right? Night Owl, J. Michael Straczynski, hit or miss with me. Andy and Joe Kubert, that's kind of interesting art pairing, so maybe I'd be interested in that. And J. Michael Straczynski again, and Adam Hughes. Odd choice for Dr. Manhattan. Adam Hughes, great artist, but again, not well suited, I think, to the Watchmen universe. And again, all of these by Jim Lee. Just right away, I pick up on stuff that I don't like. Like in his interpretation here and the marketing, as opposed to what Alan Moore established. Okay, already mentioned the costume. This is fine, works for me. Ozymandias is maybe not quite as muscular here, a little thinner, more cerebral, maybe more like in the Watchmen movie in a weird way, the Zack Snyder movie. But I'm okay with that. I think his Comedian is fine, his Rorschach is fine. Where I have problems is when we get to, I've talked about Silk Spectre, Night Owl. He was always he got doughier later on when he put on the costume later on in the series. But even early on, he just didn't look quite as cool and Batman-ish as we're getting here. I just never felt that was a character, and the cowl's been redesigned somewhat, and it's not the exact costume, just like Silk Spectre that we see in the Watchmen miniseries, so I don't like that. And listen, if you've read the original Watchmen, you know what I'm going to say here. He's usually just, you know, there are instances as he moves forward in time, he gets more and more naked, basically, once he's acquired his powers. And, you know, in the present, you know, time of Watchmen, when you read it, he's just walking around with his dong out, which, you know, is kind of an important detail in a weird way to Watchmen, right? It's an interesting part of his character. You know, there's a progression to it, and it makes sense story-wise, and it's kind of cheeky and funny as well to just have the guy walking around naked. It's just kind of a funny idea to have incorporated into a comic, but which, again, makes sense in the story. Going to assume the miniseries maybe takes place more back in time, and that's why we're getting the briefs version of Dr. Manhattan. But still, it's just kind of an interesting aspect and funny aspect of Dr. Manhattan that I'm not seeing here, and that seems DC is shying away from, right? So the shying away from, you know, Night Owl's kind of mundane design to a certain extent, right? Trying to make him look cooler and more Batman-like. So all of those things, I don't like. I definitely wouldn't want to see Jim Lee draw any of these books. You know, he did the marketing. It's kind of understandable. He's Jim Lee. He sells. But yeah, for me, it just doesn't work in the Watchmen world. So finally, we get a nice kind of sequence of Rorschach kicking ass and really being sadistic, right? So saving this poor lady from her pimp, one of the members of the gang that tried to kill him as well, right? So nice swift kick to the groin here. Seems like he probably kicks him in the head, right? Because you get kind of that passing out blurry effect here, which is pretty cool. And as he kind of comes back to, realizes he's tied to a chair. And, you know, again, Rorschach and his methods were shown a little bit in the Watchmen comic, kind of hinted at here. We're just getting more of it. I don't know if you'd say it's gratuitous or something, but definitely what we want to see with Rorschach, I think. There's a bit of a sadistic side to what he does, and that's kind of, you know, what's off-putting, but also kind of interesting, I guess. Hawk Tui, before the young lady Hawk Tui. This is years before. So obviously the prostitute unfortunately goes down to the bar here and the billiards hall and rats out Rorschach that he's up there, you know, doing something to the pimp. So as he's asking for information, the pimp, you know, obviously refuses, grabs his hand that's got the broken bit of glass from earlier, you know, all taped up, and just stabs him in the crotch there. This I thought was pretty rough as well. He puts the glass in his mouth and then punches him, so the glass kind of comes out through the side of his mouth. That's got to be horrible. It's got to affect your, you know, the inside of your mouth, your gums, your tongue. Just, ugh, that one there, you know, I felt it. And that's where they leave us off, because now that the prostitute has ratted him out, the bad dudes are coming up the stairs to take care of him. Or more than likely, Rorschach will take care of them. And I talked about last issue when I reviewed number 1, you know, the kind of bit of the Crimson Corsair, or the pirate story that they're doing again, just like there were little sequences of that in the Watchmen original comics. Not really interested in that at all, so just kind of skipping over that. And this is kind of a snapshot of where DC is in 2012, right? So the New 52 and stuff. Okay, I see. And here are some of the covers from the other titles from before Watchmen. Yeah, so the Darwin Cook stuff visually looks pretty interesting, and again, meshes well with that time period, I think. Again, if I find them for cheap, guys, I'll be more than willing to check them out, read them, and do some reviews. So that is it, guys. That's my review of Rorschach number 2 before Watchmen. If you are still watching the channel and you are subscribed, thank you so much. I really do appreciate all your support, and you guys are pillars for me, and you're what keep the channel growing and keep it going as well. Feel free to comment on stuff I've said, mistakes I've made, questions I've asked, or any info I've asked about that you know about. Let me know, and I will definitely get back to you as best as I can. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a quick second for you, and it really helps the channel out, helps us grow, and helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books just like we are. Check out my comic books, Big Baby and STARCRASHER. Check them out at KINGCOMICS.CA. And once again, thanks for watching, and have an awesome day.
Like! Subscribe! Like! Subscribe!
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents STARCRASHER one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.